You ever think about how easy it is for us to take things for granted? You know, our everyday lives, hell, even just our life, period. You know, we take our lives and the beauty of life for granted all the time. You know, our lives are so good that we forget to be grateful for all the little things that are provided to us. Welcome back to another episode of Sweat Talk. My name is Chad. Now, when I say the little things we take for granted, what I'm talking about is things that we get every single day that it's almost like we feel like we deserve them. You know, things like the fresh air that we breathe, the shoes on our feet, the food that we eat, the roof over our heads, the air conditioning that we have, or the heater and the furnace that's inside of our house. You know, creature comforts, right? You know, we've become so complacent by having these everyday creature comforts that we believe that we're entitled to them, or we believe that we deserve them, right? Like these things they're a right, not a privilege. You know, meanwhile, there's people all around the world that they don't have any of that. You know, there's people that the only cooling that they're going to get inside of their mud hut with their dirt floors is going down to some shitty lake down by their house and throwing wet water on the walls so that when the water evaporates, it'll cool the house a little bit. It's funny, you know, because something that's funny that's been pointed out to me by Europeans is the fact that in America we have garbage disposals in our kitchen sink, right? Europeans, they don't have that. Where does that garbage go? Where do those food scraps go, or whatever, when you just throw them down the sink? You know, our health, our fitness, we take that for granted and we indulge in all this trash. And then when we get older, we pay the consequences for our actions as our actions and our piss poor choices that we made when we were younger, you know? And there's been a lot of you guys that they've commented on how they've said that I might be looking unhealthy or something like that because I've lost a substantial amount of weight and size. So to that, I'm extremely healthy. I'm probably healthier than I ever have been, and I am currently down an additional 30 pounds. I'm leaning out, and I'm going to start bulking back up here, starting just a couple of days ago. That all started from when I injured my back in, I think it was September. It was late August, early September. I couldn't work out, but I still kept my nutrition on point. And instead of bulking like I was in the process of doing, my back injury, it prevented me from being able to lift. So I have lost a substantial amount of muscle and size and fat at the same time. But I appreciate your concern. However, I am extremely healthy. So now that I got some housekeeping out of the way, back on to topic. And what spurred my thinking or my inspiration in making this video was yesterday I flew home from St. Augustine, Florida. And in doing so, I flew out of Jacksonville. Now, when I got to the departure drop-off, you know, where you drop people off and then drive on or whatever at the airport, I was standing outside and I saw a whole bunch of Harley Davidsons come rolling up. It was a biker club, you know, not a biker gang, but a biker club. But so Jacksonville Airport at 5 o'clock in the morning it's a pretty big. It's a decent sized airport, but at 5 o'clock in the morning, it gets really busy because everybody's trying to catch that first flight out of there. So I get to the counter to go check in, and I asked the lady if she had any idea what that was all about, and she actually did. She said that it is a motorcycle club that it's a veterans club. It's a veterans organization, and you know, she didn't elaborate much, but she told me that there's some like event or something that goes on in Washington, D.C. for these World War II veterans. So I guess every year, the surviving World War II veterans in the area are gifted a flight to this event in Washington, D.C. So this bike club, to show respect, they pay for these plane tickets and they escort these World War II veterans to the Jacksonville airport, and then they walk them back to the gate and get them on the plane as a sign of respect. I thought that was cool as hell, right? You know, how could you not look at that and be like, man, that is super awesome, right? So then I start walking down the airport, and I notice there's American flags all over the place. And then I see some of these bikers, they're carrying American flags. I'm like, man, this is awesome, you know? Just filled with pride. Absolutely filled with pride. It was so cool to see, right? So I go through the security, I do all the, you know, the whole rigmarole. I'm getting through the airport. And I get to my gate and I sit down and I'm waiting to board my plane. And next thing I know, hello. Oh, you're all right, brother. There's plenty of forest for us, bud. So I get done, I'm walking through the airport. I go through security, do that whole fiasco, that whole rigmarole. And I get to my gate and I go to sit down or I sat down, and then next thing I know, people all around me are standing up and they're cheering, they're clapping, they're hooting, they're hollering, they're whistling. So it sounded like I was in a concert, man. And you know, the amount of pride that I felt from being able to be there and witness this and experience it was overwhelming, man. I mean, it almost brought a tear to my eye. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing to see people stand up and cheer for these World War II veterans, because you know what? These World War II veterans, they didn't just serve for us in the United States, they did it for the whole fucking world. Everybody in the world, so it doesn't matter where you're at. If there's a World War II veteran, they deserve that respect. And the amount of patriotism that I felt inside of that airport was fucking awesome. It was absolutely fucking awesome. But then I got to thinking also, you know, since these guys they're 100 years old, right? They're 100 fucking years old. And if you served in World War II, then that also means that you were alive for the Great Depression as well. So 1929 to 1939, you experienced the Great Depression. You know, 1939 comes around and you're like, hey man, sweet. We made it through that shit. We lived, we survived, we didn't starve. And then come 1939, you get drafted to go to World War II. One of the most brutal wars to ever exist, you know? Chemical warfare, they were killing people, their fucking bare hands. They're watching their brothers and sisters die. They were watching their family members lose limbs. Hell, they might even had to cut people's limbs off to save their lives or to kill them so that they could survive themselves. You know, and then they just spent the last decade starving through the Great Depression, most of them. And then they get out to World War II, whatever area, whatever theater they were in, and the supply chain back then was kind of shitty. So you're in combat, you just spent the last decade starving. Now you're in World War II, and you're still probably fucking starving. Except you're living in some of the worst conditions that any human being and could ever experience. And you are witnessing humanity at its absolute worst. Not only that, you're partaking in that humanity that's at its worst. So then we think about the gratitude, right? We think about the difficult times that we have in front of us. Think about the things that these people have seen over the last 100 years, the development of the Industrial Revolution, the development of all of these cities everywhere that they've lived. And do you think for a minute, do you think for one fucking minute that they aren't grateful for what they have and where they're at? Because the way that I see it, we haven't seen shit. We haven't seen nothing compared to these people. And I'm not saying that life isn't hard, because life is hard. And I firmly believe that anybody can achieve the success that they want. I firmly believe that we can all accomplish whatever it is that we want to accomplish. I know without a shadow of a doubt, everybody can achieve what they want, but most won't. And I'm not naive enough to believe that everyone will. Most won't, and I believe it's because they're not grateful for what they have. They're not willing to do the hard work. They're not willing to sacrifice, to make the necessary sacrifices to accomplish what it is that they want. They say they want it, but their actions don't show, and their actions don't embrace what it is that they say that they want. We aren't grateful people anymore. We instead of being grateful, we're ungrateful for what we don't have. We don't think about being grateful and showing gratitude for what we do have. You know, our lives, we put emphasis around stuff instead of each other, instead of humanity, and instead of growing that legacy and growing our own tribe. It's stuff that becomes the priority. Have nice stuff, buy nice stuff, sell nice stuff, but stuff is not the priority. If you want to truly be happy, if you want to truly succeed in life, you need to be grateful. You need to give. not consume. You need to share. You need to give something back to the world. That's how you're going to become fulfilled. Whether we want to admit it or not, we are tribal creatures. You know, I've said it 100 times. I am an introvert, but I don't let that stop me. You know, I've had people say that how can you be an introvert when you're married? Well, I don't know what the fuck that has to do with price of tea in China, but whatever. The way that I treat my fears and the way that a lot of other people treat their fears is completely fucking different. I face my fears and I run into them. I lean into that shit. If I'm afraid of something, I'm not going to lay down and accept it. I am an introvert. I get extremely uncomfortable around large crowds, but that's exactly why I go and put myself out in large crowds, because I know that fear or that feeling is made up in my head. I know that there isn't going to be some crazy made up risk that I can come up with in my head. Like, just because I'm in a large group or a mass setting, like, it doesn't mean that there's gonna be some whack job show up and be a mass shooting or something. It happens, and it could happen. But when that happens, then I'm going to deal with it at that time, and I am going to take action at that time, and I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm not going to let it cripple me. Because I know that if I just sit in my house and I stay in my comfort zone and I stay there and I don't do anything, I don't go anywhere, I don't interact with the tribe, I don't interact with people, that ain't fucking living, man. That is not living. I'm gonna get out there and I'm going to experience life. I'm going to experience people. I'm going to be grateful for what I've been given. I'm going to be grateful for this life that I get to live and experience. And I'm not going to do it in the safety and in comfort, the soul safety and comfort of my own home. I do enjoy it, don't get me wrong. I love it. I love my little house, and I'm grateful for that house. I'm grateful for the vehicles that I drive. I'm grateful for the food that I eat, the shoes on my feet, the clothes that I wear, the fresh air that I breathe, the clean water that I get to drink. Because it's the little things that add up in life. It's the little things that we have to remember and not take for granted. Taking each other granted, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why there's divorce, right? Is because we don't appreciate the other person. We don't appreciate our spouse enough anymore. We just expect that they're going to be there, and when we show up, they're always going to be there regardless. And that's not the case. Our children, as they're growing up, we have a tendency to just let them go willy-nilly and do whatever it is that they're going to do, and we ignore them until it's too late. We don't do things to be a part of their lives when they're little, and then we wonder why the hell our kids are going out and getting hooked on all these hard drugs or just being lazy pieces of shit. So then this creates this perpetual cycle of single parenthood and where it's acceptable and it's the absolute norm. You know, now people aren't getting married because they say that it's a waste and it's on both sides, right? And then that feeling becomes mutual on both sides. So now that's generally accepted. And I'm not saying that everybody should get married. I'm not saying that marriage is the answer, but building a legacy and building strong bonds and strong relationships, that is our purpose here. That is our purpose in this world. And that's how we're going to give back, is build something bigger than ourselves. Hello.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hey, dude. Hello.
Hi.
I'm also not saying that everybody needs to go have children. I'm not saying that getting married is going to be everybody's purpose, right? But what I am saying is building something bigger than ourselves, is building a legacy of some sort. That is our purpose. Being involved in something bigger than ourselves. That's where we're going to find gratitude. That's why we're going to find fulfillment. That's where we're going to find happiness. You know, the strong emphasis on consumption of stuff has become the priority that we're told that is what's going to make us happy. And we believe that because it fits the agenda, it fits the idea and the ideology that we have inside of our own minds. We believe that this next shiny object is going to make us happy. We believe that once the honeymoon wears off of buying that new iPhone, or once the honeymoon wears off of buying that new computer or video game or whatever, that we need to go get another dopamine hit. We need another dopamine hit by consuming something else and moving on to the next shiny object. And in the overall scheme of things, we're doing nothing but destroying our own futures. And we're lying to ourselves saying that the stuff is what is making us happy. The stuff is what our purpose is. It's nothing more than our addiction to dopamine that's talking, and the brainwashing and programming that we experience on that big black fucking box on the wall that those talking heads tell us that we need. You know, and understand, like, I'm not knocking people into sales either. Sales are a necessary part for any business to survive. There has to be sales for everything. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Sales are necessary. But we need to understand that the true cost, the absolute cost of what it is before we purchase said object, said shiny object. And we need to become grateful, and we need to give back. We need to give back to one another. You know, some people, they might think that means that they should automatically have access to you, or that somehow you deserve, or they deserve your time. And that's not the case either. You are the one that gets to choose where you spend your time. You are the one that gets to choose what access somebody has to you. You are the one that decides your future, your fate, and the next chapter in the book that you are writing called life. At the end of the day, in order for us to find true happiness, true fulfillment, we have to be grateful for what we have. We have to be grateful for the life that God has given us, the life that we live every single day. And that is up to you to do. That is solely up to you to do. And you have the ability to do it. The question is, do you want to do it? And will you do it? So if you made it this far, do me a favor and go in the comments and just write the word gratitude. Just that one word, gratitude. You know, we have to become we have to become grateful for what we have. We have to remember that our attention is our intention. I'll say that again. Our attention is our intention. So if we focus on accumulating more stuff, if we focus our attention on the next shiny object, then we're not going to be grateful for what we have right now. If we focus our attention on being single, our attention is poor me, I can't find a date, or poor me, I'm fat, I'm overweight. If that's what we're focusing on, if that's what we are applying our attention to, then our intention by default is the fact that I'm broke, I'm overweight, I'm single, I'm lonely, and nothing will ever change. We need to focus on being grateful for what we have. And as soon as we focus our attention on being grateful for what we have, then we're able to free up more room for the things that we want in our life. So I asked for these short comments because they do a couple of things. Number one, they help us, and they allow us to change our subconscious mind, because when we see something positive over and over and over, then it's going to be more likely for us to see something from a different perspective and from a positive light. You know, because we need to reprogram our minds to be grateful for what we have, and become grateful for the lives that we live. And then they also help the channel grow, because every time the algorithm sees somebody like, comment, and subscribe, then it's going to be more likely to push this content out to somebody else who might find value in it as well. And with that, I gotta hurry up. It just started raining on me. Went from beautiful to raining. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for all of those super thanks that you're giving me. I want to thank you guys for showing up. I hope you guys are showing up for yourselves, and I hope each and every one of you has a wonderful day. Peace.